Today's video is all about poop. Multicolor. Oh, we're leaking. Oh, we're just gonna see what printer makes less of this when printing multicolor. This is the Bambu X1C. It comes in at a whopping $1,500, and it's been out for a while. Not much has changed since the launch, but it really changed the game when this printer came out. And this is the Creality K2. It came out last year, and this is Creality's first multicolor printer. But how do they stack up? As this pretty much costs as much as this one, but it's a lot larger printer. I bought this printer in 2023, and it's been pretty great. I really haven't had pretty much any issues with it, and multicolor is pretty spot on with stock settings. I've been printing with this one for probably 6 months, and overall I like the printer, but the multicolor was initially disappointing. When I got the printer, this is the first thing I printed, and overall it looked decent. Like, the print quality is a little meh, but it prints it super fast, so you could always slow it down. And then the next thing I printed was this Snoopy. I printed this thing 3 times, continually increasing the purge volumes, and I was still getting a ton of bleeding. As you can see here, even in the orange to the black, and then Snoopy up here is pretty bad. 3 attempts, and I pretty much just gave up on the multicolor in general because I was just wasting a bunch of filament and time. But as you can see here, when you do like layered prints, it's not as noticeable. Maybe I just can't see this transition going up, but when you have stuff where it prints light to dark, it bleeds like crazy. This is the Creality K2. I did a couple videos on this printer. I posted my follow-up video, I think a couple months ago on this channel. So you can go watch that if you want a more in-depth review on this. So first, a few corrections from that video. I said I haven't had any problems with any spools in the CFS, and I was wrong. I officially do have problems with some spools in the CFS. But after I had all the problems with the Snoopy pumpkin, I just really wasn't printing multicolor with this printer. Therefore, I really wasn't running into those problems. But now that I have done a bunch of multicolor printing, we had problems. But why? So when the spool feeds in and it's not pulling back and doing a bunch of color changes, it's just continually pulling from that spool. Therefore, no feeding or CFS problems with pretty much any spool I've used. But when you're constantly doing a bunch of color changes and retractions and refilling the filament, it runs into a bunch of problems. Okay, so these 3 are Creality spools. No problems with those. Bambu spool, no problem there either. But these spools are pretty much the same exact size and width. And it has these little bumpers on top that are spring-loaded that hold downward pressure on the spools to ensure that pressure pushes down on these, making it able to feed and retract. So if the spool isn't relatively the same width and height as the Bambu or Creality spools, you're gonna have a ton of retraction issues and it's gonna be super annoying. So lesson learned there. But with the Bambu, I haven't really had any feeding issues with that one at all. Some people do have problem with cardboard spools, but I don't really use a ton of cardboard spools, so I can't really comment on that. But I mainly run Bambu filament and Sunloop filament, and I really haven't had a problem with either filament in the AMS. It's mainly just the Sunloop filaments in the CFS that was giving me issues. All right, then to briefly touch on each printer. This printer is 350 by 350 by 350, which is quite a bit bigger than the Bambu, which is 256 by 256 by 256. This printer also has a heated chamber. The Bambu does not have a heated chamber. Speed-wise, Bambu prints at 500 millimeters a second and 20K acceleration. This prints at 600 millimeters a second and 30K acceleration. So this printer is a little bit faster than that printer. And as for reliability and print quality, I do have better luck with the Bambu. This one does have spotty first layers, but 95% of the time it's fine. But there will be times where it'll just be a different Z height and you have to reset the print and do a calibration and then it prints fine. And there is times with this printer where I'll just get wonky print quality where it'll just put out a not great print. Versus the Bambu, that thing pretty much prints great with everything I throw at it. I really don't have many complaints with the Bambu. But overall, I think this is a great printer. 90-95% of the time, it puts out great prints at great quality. The only thing that really disappointed me with this printer was the multicolor. Just because they released a printer, but they didn't do like any testing with the multicolor. I should be able to put Creality spools in here and use the Creality slicer and then print something and not have much bleed. The bleed on this thing was excessive. But when I did start this test, they did put out an update, and one of the taglines in the update was imprinted multicolor logic, which I did think helped a lot with the printing and the bleeding. I don't know what changed, but it did seem to be better. Like Creality has a whole team of people. I just feel like they could have spent a couple days printing multicolor prints and calibrating those purge numbers to get semi-decent results when you print with the printer. Versus the Bambu, I pretty much never touch the purge volumes and it puts out great prints pretty much every time. I would say with the Bambu, you're getting a little more reliability with the smaller printer, but this one you're getting more options and you're gonna have to tinker a little bit more to get better results, but this printer can print great. And like Bambu being Bambu, they always have been expensive, but that's $1,500 and this is $1,500. So with that being said, let's go take a look at the multicolor prints. I printed 5 or 6 different multicolor prints, and then we're gonna show you the poop, weigh each print, weigh the poop, and see what the quality looks like on each one. Okay, so first let's go into calibration. The Bambu, I really didn't calibrate anything. It just prints fine. So that's for the most part stock. Creality did need the settings raised. So the main issue is it struggles printing dark to light. There's just a lot of bleed. I don't know if that's because of the longer nozzle or what, but you have to ramp up those numbers. But how much? And then for calibration, I use these creepy little eyeball things I made. So I wasn't a huge fan of the ones online. So I made these little eyeball things just in the slicer, but you can see here, this is the first test. We have some bleed from here to here. Second test, it's hard to see on camera, but I still had some bleed. And then this one, I got it to have no bleed, but we have these like cooling layer lines, which I'll touch on later. Then I tested with different colors, like this light orange, along with like a darker color to black. As you can still see, we have a little bit of bleed. And I actually printed this one on that Bambu. I actually lowered it a little bit to see if I could, how much I could get away with, and still a little bleed, so I went back to stock settings for black to white. So let's hop into the software and I'll show you what numbers I changed and why. So this is Creality Slicer, and if you come up here to flushing volumes, so you can change these numbers in here, then it'll spit out the estimated flush volumes over here. So it recommends not going over 1200, but I kind of need to be at that top end in order to not get bleeding. And how this works is, so you're printing from orange to black, the number doesn't need to be high. But if you're printing from black to white, that number needs to be pretty high. And for whites, I was at 1250, and then for like oranges and other light colors, I was at about 1150, 1200. I'll put the numbers I used on the screen so you can use those too if you have this printer. And then just adjust down from those numbers until you get the proper purge amount with no bleed. And you can change this multiplier number down here, but I chose not to, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay, so this is the Bambu slicer, and you come up here to flushing volumes. And if you change this multiplier, for example, let's change it to 1.3. That changes all the numbers. I want to save as much filament as possible. So let's put it back down to 0, and then I would change this. So from black to white, I would change this to like 750 or, something like that. I don't have to change this number, but I could also lower it to like 600. But then again, if you come down to the flushing volumes, it's going to change all those numbers. So I choose to change these individually, and once you understand this table, it's not overly hard to figure out. Then we can just change this. Let's just go from black to white. Let's change this to 800. And then over here you can see the black flushed amount is 41 grams. So we're going to reslice this. And then you can see that flush volume went up. And if you just don't feel like messing with it, just raise this number by a little bit and see how far that gets you. But yeah, these are the numbers I changed, and feel free to play with them yourself. When it comes to multicolor prints, there's multiple variables involved, from type of filament, color filament, even filament brand. So we'll touch on those as we're going through this, and then I'll explain that. So first off, we have this Fox Flexi. This is my print here. I printed this on the Bambu. I actually believe this was printed on the Bambu A1. And here's the poop it took, along with the prime tower, to make this print. And for someone who hasn't printed multicolor before, you're gonna see these numbers and you'll be like, wow, that is insane. The amount of poop it takes is crazy. So to print something like this, you're gonna purge more filament than you are to actually print this Flexi here, which is crazy. But the only way around all the ways, the true way around it would be a multi-headed printer, like the Bambu's new printer. And then Prusa has that multi-headed printer, but it's quite expensive. So you can modify the purge volumes. Even if you tune it in super well and you can bring this down by a third, let's say, for example, you're still gonna waste more than you're printing. And the only true way around that is to not print one item. So that would be the advantage to a printer like this, where you could print, 30 of these. You could fill that bed up and print, because one of these flexis is going to purge the same amount as 30 of these flexis, or 5 flexis, or 10 flexis, because all it is purging between color changes. So if it's printing all those prints, you're going to have the same amount of poop as it takes to make one versus 10. I hope that makes sense. So the true way to save poop is to print a bunch of the same item at the same time. So the K2 having a bigger bed would be an advantage over the Bambu. So in the end, having more purge volume may not be the worst if you can print more in a single crack. Will they stick to the bed? That's another problem. So let's take a look at these numbers, and these numbers are for one single print. I could have printed more to be more efficient, but I don't need 72 Flexi Foxes. And then all the files I printed are my files that I've designed myself, except 1, 2. And I haven't weighed these yet, so I'm super excited to see. Like, I looked at the purge volumes in the print software, but can we trust those? I don't know. So we're going to use this bucket. I'm going to put it on the scale, zero out the scale, and dump everything into the bucket. And like, I know the results, but again, I don't know the numbers, so I'm quite curious to see how bad or good this really is. So this is the Bambu Flexi. This is my file. You can see that looks really good, nice and clean. And this is the Creality Flexi. As you can see, there's more lines here than on the Bambu. And apparently I used different oranges, but I don't remember. And you can see how the layer lines are a little bit more, like these lines here and up by the face are a little more prominent on the Creality. I'll explain that in a little bit, but overall both prints look good, minus the, I didn't even realize I used a different orange here. But both pretty good prints. So, Bambu Flexi, 26 grams. Creality Flexi, 24 grams apparently. 26, 24. Okay. So Bambu, 158 grams. With the Flexi, 184. Again, that includes the prime tower and everything. And obviously give or take a few grams, since I'm kind of just like making a mess half the time. Now time for the Creality. 264 grams. 287 with the Flexi. All right, so that's kind of going to set the theme for this video. Granted, I didn't realize I used different oranges there, so that one may not be the most fair comparison. But this one weighed 184 total with everything, and this one weighed 280. So that's 100 grams different to get the same exact Flexi, which is drastic. So that's roughly 60% more purge volume than the Bambu. Next up, we have, I think everyone who has a multicolor printer has printed a Pikachu. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing. But I actually printed 3 Pikachus because I mentioned that the colors of the orange were different. Here you're going to see what I mean by that. So some filaments are just more transparent than others. Why? I have no idea if it's just how they're made. I feel like more of the high-speed filaments have that more transparency than others, but I would avoid those filaments completely when you're trying to do multicolor, because you're just going to have to purge more filament to get a cleaner print. So let's take a look at 2 so I can show you what I mean side by side. Okay, so this is like an FL Sun high-speed PLA. And as you can see, it almost looks transparent on the roll. It's a lot more prevalent when you print with it. And then here is a Sunloop PLA, which is also, you can just see it's got a little more like white to it. I don't know if that translates to the camera. Like here, this is the Hatchbox PLA. And I hope you can see that, but you can see this one here has a little bit more of a transparency to it. So again, avoid the ones that look transparent. Do some test prints and see what works best for you, but I would avoid the ones that are more transparent. It'll just save you a lot of headache and purge volume. Okay, so for these Pikachus, I used this Sunlu 2.0. Can you guess what printer printed what? So Creality, Bambu. As you can see, the Bambu's is a lot smoother, but I did get a tiny bit of bleed with stock numbers. And then here we go. Still a little bit of bleed on there as well, as you can see. But see all these lines here? There, there's noticeable in the back. This is going to be a common theme you see with the Creality printer. Why do we get those lines that are more drastic than the Bambu? I'm pretty sure it's because I have to crank the purge volumes to get bleed-free prints with the Creality. Again, that FlexiFox was 50% more. So the more you purge, the longer it takes between filament changes. Therefore, that filament's cooling down and it's causing those different layer lines. It's like when you run out of a roll of filament on your printer, you put the new spool in there and it starts printing. Usually there's like a little bit of a compression line there. So I believe that's what's happening here. It's just taking too long between filament changes to start printing again because you have to purge so much. And like you can see here, like on the body. So the body looks great, but then we get up to here where it's starting to do the filament changes and it starts to look like crap. Again, I think it's because, like even here from the eyes to here, this looks nice and smooth. You get up to here where it starts changing filaments, looks like crap. Looks like crap. So although it can print great print quality, the time it takes between filament changes is really hurting the print quality of that. So like look at Pikachu here. Bambu's just looks way better print quality wise, minus the bleed here. And I've printed a Pikachu with my Bambu before on stock volumes and I didn't get any color bleeding. So I was like, okay, it has to be the filament that I used. So I went ahead and printed a Pikachu with the roll of Bambu filament instead of this Sunlu high-speed filament that's kind of transparent. I didn't know that at the time. And here we go. This was printed on the P1S. I should have used a smaller layer height. Them overhangs don't look very good. But little Pikachu, big Pikachu. You can see how this one looks a little bit less transparent than this one here. But no color bleed, stock settings. Should have bumped it up a little more. But P1S, X1C. So with that being said, in a whole lot of words, choose your filament wisely. So let's weigh these and see how much we purged to get Pikachu. Let's start with little Pikachu, just for the heck of it, even though he's pretty much irrelevant. It was just to prove a point on the different types of filament. So Pikachu weighs 18 grams. His poop with the Prime Tower is 119. 137 total. So just looking at these two bags here, I was quite excited to actually weigh these. So let's start out with, so Bambu Pikachu with a little bit of bleed, but good quality. He is 35 grams. 161 grams of poop and tower. 196 total. We have one Creality Pikachu, not great quality. 37 grams. $270 grams of waste, and we still had a little bit of color bleed. 308 total. All right, so now that we get the point, I'm gonna go through these a lot faster. I made sure to use the exact same roll on both machines. So I printed one on the Bambu, swapped the roll over to the K2, and did the print. So this is not my file. I'll tag whose it is. I forgot off the top of my head. So this is printed on the Creality. I ended up adding these mouse ears because I did have them break free, and I wasn't really willing to risk it again, so I just left them on there. Not that big a deal. You can, they come off pretty easy. So as you can see, this is a good print. On this one, I did lower the numbers a little bit. And this is the poop. One flexi. And this is the Bambus, which also looks really good. We did have a mishap. So I ended up having 2 poop chute jams with the Bambu. So the first one I didn't think much of it. Then the second one I realized they were coming down here and they weren't sliding down. So they were just building up and mounting up. And then I was getting these like power poops that were throwing the printer off. So the AI would tell me that like, hey, you got a poop chute clog, go check your printer. And I would. Then after the second time, I removed this poop chute and I was just pooping it into the bucket like this on the back. And I didn't get any more poop chute clogs. So that's where this guy came in. I just figured it was worth a mention. Okay, so quality-wise, Bambu, Creality, same exact rolls of filament. I would say they're pretty much identical. Like they both look great. But how much poop? 34 grams for Bambu. Okay, so Bambu poop, 107 grams, 142 grams. Creality, 32. $197, $229. And if multicolor's your thing, you could really hone these numbers in. I don't think you're gonna get it much lower, but you could, since there's no bleed here, you could definitely get it a little bit lower with the Creality. But on average, we're looking at 50 to 60% more waste. Most of these I did dark colors to light colors, just because that's the most prevalent. But the next one we do is dark to dark, so it's not nearly as drastic. Who printed what? So these are both Bambu filaments. So this is the one I had break free on the Creality. So that's when I started adding the mouse ears for, better luck. So these are both Bambu brown, just a different shade of brown. But as you can see, the Creality one looks way better because there's less poop, because it doesn't have to purge as much between filament changes. So Bambu, Creality. I'd say both prints here look pretty equal. 0.16 layer height. So let's see how much poop we had. Hardly any poop on the Bambu. Again, Bambu Flexi, 33, 33, 66. So it purged the exact amount it took to make the Flexi. So 34. 48. 81. So again, pretty much the same results, but you can see the layer lines are drastically better on the dark to dark as there's less purge, so it's just a better looking print. So the lower you can keep the purge volumes, the better your print's gonna look. So as you can see, there's a pretty big theme here. You're wasting probably 40 to 60% more filament with poop on the Creality than the Bambu. And I think that's just because that longer nozzle in the printer. Oh, we missed the poop. And in the first video I made, people were saying I was printing into infill. I promise you, I'm not printing into infill. That box isn't even checked by default. So something like this, or if you're printing to like brown to brown, then you probably could get away with printing into infill, again, saving poop. Also, where you're not having any color bleed and it's dark to dark, you could also get away with not using a prime tower. And one more thing to touch on that I didn't really mention or keep track of during this video was multicolor prints take drastically longer. So one of those little flexis could be printed in probably 45 minutes to an hour. But when it's a multicolor print, it's gonna take like 8 to 9 hours. And it all depends how many color changes you have. If you only have 2 color changes, it'll go a lot faster and have less waste versus some of those had like 3 or 4 color changes. So, what do I think? I think they're both good printers. If you want to do multicolor and you don't care about the bed size, I would buy the Bambu. For the price, $1,500. If you don't exactly care about multicolor and you just want a large printer with a heated chamber, for sure buy this one. This has been great. It's going to require more tinkering than the Bambu, but I do think it's a good printer. And they're going to continue to come out with more and more updates. I just think they rush things to market. I mean, most companies do. There's also the entire crowd that just hates Bambu. I personally like Bambu. I think they're great printers and they print fine. But there's an entire group of people that don't like Bambu because it's a closed source system. So if you want more freedom with what you can do with your printer, then Creality's for you. If you don't care and just want to send files to a printer that prints well, Bambu. Apple, Android. People get in my comments and are like, oh, Bambu sucks, or Creality's a piece of crap. I got my Creality and it doesn't even work. You're gonna get bad printers from companies. It doesn't matter what brand. Bambu could send out a printer that's a dud and you just have to send it back and get a different printer or get the same printer and hope it's better. They're just electronics. You can go to Best Buy and buy a TV and get it home, and 2 weeks later, it's a piece of junk. It's just how things are made, unfortunately. Quality control sometimes lacks. They're sending these things out in the thousands, and unfortunately it happens. So do some research, watch a variety of videos, see what printer speaks to you, and get multiple opinions. Don't just take my opinion. Don't just go watch Uncle Jesse. Don't just go watch so-and-so. See multiple reviews, get multiple opinions, because most likely we're going to say different things. So buy what makes you happy, and that's it. Don't listen to no Bambu fanboys or Creality fanboys. Just buy what speaks to you. Creality's good. Bambu's good. I like my cheaty printers. FlashForge makes good printers. I just got the Elegoo Century Carbon. That's a good printer. I'm assuming they're coming out with multicolor soon, so I'll test that as well. Again, get multiple opinions. Buy what you want. Also, if you're new to 3D printing, you don't have to buy a $1,500 printer. The Elegoo is $300, the FlashForge $500, the Bambu A1 I think is a great printer, and there's a lot of options out there. You don't need the biggest, baddest printer, especially if you're just starting out. Honestly, you could buy 3 printers for the price of either one of these, and if you want to start a print farm, 3 printers is going to print circles around either one of these printers by themselves. With that being said, I think they're both great printers. This one definitely poops more. I'm assuming Creality's going to come out with a Creality K2, K3 version, because look at the K1 launch. There was like 4 of them, 4 different K1s, K1C, K1 Max, 2 renditions of the original K1. So Creality's just going to make a better printer. When that comes out, I don't know, but I can almost guarantee it. That's just how it works. So if you want to support us, we have affiliate links to both these printers in the description. We get a small kickback at no cost to you, or you can go to our website or on Etsy and buy our 3D printer files. I also have CNC files and all that good stuff. But either way, I appreciate you watching the video, and thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Good day.